Perfectionism can help you find more flow, but only with the right mindset. Here's all you need to know to excel without letting perfectionism compromise your well-being. Hey there, thanks for tuning in again. In today's video, we'll talk about perfectionism and how it relates to your performance. You already read it in the title. Perfectionism can make us find more of this highly productive flow state. But this is not always the case. There's often a fine line between ambition and perfectionism. We're used to living in a competitive, fast-paced world that suggests that striving for excellence is what makes us keep up, become successful, and survive in this world. But sometimes this comes at a cost. If you consider yourself a perfectionist, you may be familiar with the constant chatter of the inner critic, fear of failure, procrastination, thinking about why your work is not good enough yet or how others might be disappointed, so that in the end we might perform even worse. So how do we know whether perfectionism is serving us in a way or not? And what can we do if it doesn't? Let's take a closer look at the psychology behind perfectionism. First of all, let me tell you that ambition is fantastic. It's the basis for self-improvement and high performance. And even when it turns into perfectionism, it can be extremely useful. Think of a professional gymnast who needs to make sure that every movement fits so they don't get injured, or pharmacologists doing research on new medications. Of course, every step needs to be double or better triple checked. Perfectionism can increase performance, intrinsic motivation, and well-being while lowering anxiety and procrastination under certain conditions. Perfectionists set excessively high standards. They don't aim for high achievement, they aim for flawlessness. And they tend to compulsively do so even for tasks that don't necessarily require perfection. Are you someone who tests different color coding systems for your to-do lists? Or make sure every shirt hangs perfectly and straight over the clothes horse? No judgment if you do. It depends on your motivation behind it and how you feel, of course. In psychology, we distinguish between adaptive and maladaptive perfectionism. Adaptive perfectionists set themselves extremely high standards, but usually don't have crippling self-doubt or beat themselves up for mistakes or setbacks. They just want to be very accurate in what they're doing, which helps them, according to research, to perform better, develop intrinsic motivation, experience less anxiety, procrastinate less, and to generally have a higher well-being. Maladaptive perfectionists, on the flip side, are masters in self-criticism. Perhaps they can't let go of that embarrassing mistake they made months ago, or they speak to themselves in a very harsh tone. They are less inclined to seek excellence, as adaptive perfectionists do, but more to avoid failure. From a flow perspective, maladaptive perfectionists have a much harder time getting in the zone compared to adaptive perfectionists. This negative form is more extrinsically motivated, as the outcome, whether they succeed or fail, is much more important than the process itself. Flow, on the other hand, arises when we are intrinsically motivated. So when we're not driven by external incentives like seeking approval, compliments, money, or status, but by the pure enjoyment of what we're doing. Also, their experiences are colored by worry, fear of failure, ruminations, and unhealthy comparison. Apparently, they often feel pressured to perform in a competitive manner, potentially leading to burnout. These negative cognitions take up too much mental capacity to become absorbed in what we're doing. If you think about an example from everyday life, maybe you have to present something at work and want to do it perfectly, whatever that means to you. And in the back of your mind, you are worrying about what your colleagues or your boss may be thinking right now. What would happen if you choked? How embarrassing any hiccups may be. Whether there are sweat stains on your shirt and whether that may come across unprofessional. All these negative thoughts take up so much of your cognitive resources that it will be really, really difficult to immerse yourself in the situation and find flow. In fact, researchers explain that perfectionists have an elevated baseline activity in areas of the prefrontal cortex, a part of your brain which is responsible for complex cognitive processes like self-referential thoughts, for example, and which needs to be downregulated for flow to occur. Because in flow, we're so highly concentrated that we can block out any worries or self-conscious thoughts and fully focus on our activity until we seem to become one with it. That the prefrontal cortex is less activated during flow also explains why we often have a distorted sense of time. When in the zone, people often report that time flies, slows down, or stands still. But this is something that people who tend to maladaptive perfectionism experience much less. By the way, I'll put a link to our article on perfectionism in the description. There you'll also find all the references. But for now, the bottom line is adaptive perfectionism is usually helpful if you want to find more flow. You're ambitious, challenge yourself, and are intrinsically motivated, while maladaptive perfectionism is rather standing in the way of finding flow. If you notice some of these maladaptive patterns that we just talked about in yourself, I'll have 3 tips for you now on how to approach toxic perfectionism. Tip number 1 is zoom out and zoom in. What do I mean by that? Well, become aware of the false dichotomy of seeing things as either good or bad, success or failure. So first, zoom out to see the bigger picture. How much closer does working on this little detail actually move you toward your goal? How relevant will it be in a year from now? And then also zoom in so you can see the shades of gray in between and stop pigeonholing. Which things do you enjoy during the process? Which small improvements can you see, regardless of the outcome? Which insights and learnings did you have that you can apply in the future? Asking yourself these questions can help you to let go of that zero-sum mentality. And if you want to strengthen more positive thinking patterns and integrate that into your daily mental fitness routine, have a go at our flow session 50 Shades of Success to challenge all or nothing thinking. The long haul, to shift your focus toward the process rather than the outcome, or bounce back to reframe setbacks as learning opportunities. For the next tip, let's start with a symptom. Of course, letting go of unhealthy perfectionism doesn't happen overnight. But what you can do in the meantime is to cope with the emotions that come with it. There are many tools that help you enhance your emotional self-awareness, like mindfulness exercises, to regulate yourself physically when feeling tense or stressed, for example, breathing exercises. Or to change your cognitions to cope with your emotions and improve your current experience, such as cognitive reappraisal that we know from CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy. If you want a little guidance with that, we've got you covered. You can train your emotional self-awareness with the flow session Rock Steady. Stay calm and collected with a relaxation breathing technique in Breather, or gain confidence by imagining not the worst, but the best case scenario in What If. As always, you can find all the meditations in the Flow Lab app. The link is in the description. And then the last tip is to learn how to take and also how to reject criticism. I know criticism is a tricky thing. We're human and have a deeply rooted urge to protect our self-worth and fight whatever might threaten it. Or even better, we may have developed strategies, like perfectionism, to do everything in our hands not to receive criticism in the first place. But that's the thing. We might not listen on the factual level, but on an emotional level. We take it personally. If we manage to control our impulses and listen with a curious mind, we gain a little more time to evaluate the feedback we receive and open ourselves for actual improvement. If we come to the conclusion that the criticism is indeed valid, we can learn to adopt a growth mindset and ask ourselves what we can learn from it for the future. In the long run, this will bring us much further than getting stuck on the details and overcompensating with unhealthy perfectionism. And if we don't agree, we are also allowed to reject criticism. But these are not our hurt feelings speaking then, if we seriously consider the facts and just have a different opinion. Of course, distinguishing defiance from disagreement requires training. A good start here may be the flow session Grounded in the training area of ease, where you learn to resist impulsive reactions. That's it for today. We'll have a few upcoming videos where we dive a little deeper and discuss the 3 different types of perfectionism, how to reduce people-pleasing, let go of self-criticism and self-blame, and also about expectation management. Hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss them, and give this video a thumbs up if you learned anything new today. Thanks a lot for watching, take care, and see you next time.